Okay, well, hello, this is Barry Donaldson for another edition of Success Talk. I am extremely excited to be here today. We're at MMG Studios here in Chicago, and I have the great pleasure of having Sharon Lechter here in our studio. She's going to be doing a conference here today with some students, and she's been so grateful to join us here in our studio. Sharon, how are you?
I'm fantastic, Barry. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited about today.
Thank you so much for being in Chicago. Where are you originally from?
Well, we live in Arizona. We flew in last night, and we actually are going to go to Milwaukee for the weekend for a friend's wedding. We used to live in Milwaukee, so love Chicago. Always love to come back.
Well, thank you for coming to MMG. I really appreciate you coming out and joining us today.
It's a beautiful facility. I'm honored to be here.
Well, thank you. We know Sharon is a fantastic author. She'll tell you about her story, but I understand she is one of the authors of the incredible selling book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. She's also an author of her own book from the Napoleon Hill Foundation called Outwitting the Devil. Sharon, why don't you do me a favor and tell my listeners a little bit about your story, kind of how you started and what you're doing today.
Well, thanks so much. Yeah, I started out, I'm kind of an old broad. I started out back in the 70s with a CPA, as a CPA, and quickly got bit by the entrepreneurial bug. You know, when we're 26, we know everything. Right. So started building my own companies at that point and fell in love with my husband, got married. We've been married 31 years, had children, and the kids didn't like to read. And so I partnered with the inventor of the talking book, the books that had the sound strips down the side, and we helped build that industry at a time when bookstores were very quiet little places, and they said, stay out, we don't want those noisemakers. So it's come a long way since then. Built that industry, sold that company, moved to Arizona, and about that time our oldest son went off to college, and within 3 months got himself into deep credit card debt. And I was pretty upset. Not just at him, but I was upset with myself because I thought I had taught him about money. I had taught him the things my parents had taught me. Problem was there weren't credit cards when I went off to college. Oh. And he was with us when we used our credit cards, but he wasn't with us when we paid them off every month. And so he got to school and got lured by the free money, free t-shirt, free pizza, free money, sign here. And so he ended up getting himself into deep debt, came home at the holiday time and said, Mom, Dad, bail me out. And we said, no.
Wow.
And it took him about 7 years to working side jobs to get himself out of credit card debt and repair his credit. But I'm happy to say that he stands side by side with me today. He's a little taller, 6'6", but he is the president of my company, Pay Your Family First. But that was in 1992, and that's really when I dedicated my professional career to financial education and financial literacy. You fast forward for a few years, I met Robert Kiyosaki. We wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad together. We formed the company, Cashflow Technologies. We did 15 books together over a 10-year period. I decided to leave in 2007 because I really still wanted to focus on entrepreneurship, families, and young people. And so I formed my company, Pay Your Family First. I was asked by President Bush to be on the first President's Advisory Council for Financial Literacy.
Wow.
I served President Bush and President Obama. And then come full circle, we talk about the power of association. As I shared, I started as CPA. Last year, the AICPA, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, asked me to be their national spokesperson for financial literacy.
Wow.
So it pays to have those associations and those connections. So I'm really honored to serve that role today and excited to be working with the Napoleon Hill Foundation as well. When I left Rich Dad, they reached out and said, Sharon, we really want your help. Because the power of Napoleon Hill's products and his words and Think and Grow Rich really helped us get out of the Great Depression. And certainly we've kind of been in that same position the last couple of years. So I've been working with the Napoleon Hill Foundation. My first book was called 3 Feet from Gold, to bring those messages of hope, perseverance, and never giving up back to the forefront when it's so badly needed today. And then during that process, they found an undiscovered manuscript that had been hidden away for 73 years. And Napoleon Hill released Think and Grow Rich in 1937, Barry. And in 1938, he sat down and wrote Outwitting the Devil. And it scared his wife to death because of the title. And she said, you can't publish it. Well, he died in 1970. She died in 1984. Her sister, who had custody of it, died just a few years ago. And it was turned over to the foundation. They sent it to me and said, we really want you to look at this. And I said, okay. But it was like, this is a hot potato. I don't really want to deal with this kind of controversy. Then I read it, Barry. And it was incredible calming influence after I read it. I said, this is so pertinent to today. Whereas Think and Grow Rich talks about the synthesis of success and the
Right.
steps that you need to do to become successful.
Right.
He was frustrated when he published it. And in this book, he shares that frustration. He says, even though, and you're going to know this more than anybody because of the work that you do, he said, even though people know what they need to do to be successful, they still don't do it.
Right.
And this book talks about those self-limiting beliefs, that fear, those things that hold us back from reaching our full potential.
Wow. You know, I'm gonna talk about that for a second now. Explain to me, what is the devil? Who are you actually outwitting? Like, I'm sure it's a metaphor for something. So what is that metaphor?
Yeah, it is absolutely a parable, and actually Napoleon Hill is brilliant in how he presents it. This is actually an interrogation of the devil. And Napoleon Hill himself says, you, the reader, can decide if you think this is the real devil of biblical proportion, Satan, or whether it is that inner voice, that negative belief, the imaginary devil. So he allows the reader to take control and drive the bus as to what they want it to be. He said the bottom line is, it doesn't matter if I'm talking about the real devil or an imaginary devil. What matters is if you derive any benefit from what I share.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. And a lot of people, a lot of listeners out there, we have thousands of people who are listening to this, will be listening to this when we broadcast it online. They're entrepreneurs, they're going through their ups and downs, and a lot of them don't know how to continue to take action. They have a lot of circumstances in their lives. And this would sound like a read that they should read in terms of helping them overcome those obstacles. And I would think that outwitting the devil would be something that would be kind of inner inside them that would be preventing them from being successful. I think it would probably be an incredible way, because it says the secrets to freedom and success. And if you have one or two of those secrets to pull out of the book, what would it be?
Well, the bottom line in this is that you need to become the CEO of your own life. And by doing that, you take control of that fear. And once you expose it and look at it, it goes away.
Right.
And so it's so important now, because it's those people, Barry, today that recognize the opportunities that are being created by this economic downturn. Fear can paralyze you.
Yes.
And there's so many people sitting on a fence right now, scared to death, or they're hiding in their houses and they're depressed. But those people that say, okay, wait a minute. With every adversity creates an opportunity.
Right.
Napoleon Hill's famous quote. And so those are the people that stand up and recognize it and use that fear to motivate themselves, that are going to be the ones that you and I are talking about in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to empower people to say, okay, I'm not alone. Because so many people, when they're fearful, they feel like they're all by themselves. And everybody's been impacted by what's happened in the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. And the issue is to give them hope and give them light and be able to recognize where that fear may have come from so they can get rid of it and break through.
Yeah, that's the devil. That unknown fear or whatever. Some people even scared of success. And I think anybody out there, you want to get this book, Outwitting the Devil. Now, explain to the listeners about Pay Your Family First. What's the philosophy behind that? Because most people did not do that. So explain the philosophy of pay your family first. That's exciting.
Well, it kind of says it all. But, Napoleon Hill first came up with pay yourself first.
Right.
And, of course, many bankers and financial planners and many of the gurus out there today use that phrase, pay yourself first. And it's all about really being cognizant of your own wealth. It's not what you do for your paycheck. It's what you do with your paycheck.
Okay.
And so when you get your paycheck, instead of spending it on doodads, on a bunch of garbage, start putting away, consistently put some away in savings so that you can start investing and build an asset balance. And so that concept is so important, but I really wanted to spread it further and say, let's talk about our family. I'm so dedicated and passionate about making sure the younger generation, which is a huge generation, is empowered with the tools they need to succeed. And so that's why I said, pay your family first. Take care of your kids. You can pay your kids by teaching them the elements. And so we create products, very inexpensive, that are revolutionary. We got all kinds of awards. But the best award is when I see a group of teens sitting around playing our Thrive Time for Teens game and the lights turn on. Yeah. And it's fun, it's engaging, a lot of humor, but it gives them the tools that they can succeed. Once you give somebody the gift of financial education, it's the gift of a lifetime.
That's correct.
When somebody knows how they can control and make money on their own, they'll never be a slave to money again.
That's correct.
And that's my goal, is to turn people into masters of their money, CEOs of their own life, masters of their money, not slaves to their money.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, entrepreneurs and educators like you is what we need in the field of entrepreneuring for enterprise. I'm one of those guys who took the industry of multi-level and I took it to a whole nother level. But then I started taking my students to journeys. Those journeys were personal development, financial mastery, so they could be able to have some things like this because of the fruits of their labor, and still be able to retire and be successful at a young age. And so I really admire the work that you're doing, and I really hope that you continue to do this work, because I know it's empowering people. So why don't you tell listeners, how can they get hold of Sharon Lechter? Where can they find your resource tools? Did you do coaching? Tell them exactly what their next step would be to be able to spend some time with you versus maybe through your books or online or webinars or live.
Well, all of the above. You can visit my website, SharonLechter.com, or PayYourFamilyFirst.com, and that shows you information about all of our products and all of our services and our seminar opportunities and where I'll be speaking. But I really invite you to really engage in your own personal development, in your own future. Everything we create is very inexpensive, and that's because that's my way of giving back. I've been blessed with great success. And it's so important for all of us. That's how we're going to get out of this economy that we're in right now. And that's by giving a hand up, not a hand out.
Yes.
And that hand up is through education and providing the tools that people need to succeed. So my goal in any experience, whether it's a seminar, whether it's a one-on-one, that somebody gets one idea that's going to take them in a positive direction.
That's awesome. Well, guys, it's Sharon Lechter, LechtR.com, SharonLechter.com. You can reach her there. You want to go and get this information. When you listen to this interview, ladies and gentlemen, understand something. Understand this information is life-changing, and understand that you have to take action with it. And she's been so kind to come in our studio and spend some time with us to give you information to help you become successful. Well, listen, this is another edition of Success Talk. This is Barry Donaldson. God bless you, and I'll see you on the beaches. We'll talk next month. God bless. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.